Commission meeting to order. Donna, if you want to call the order.
Member Dean Hazelhorse.
Present.
President Butch Schleier.
Present.
Member Dustin Roth.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Yeah.
Okay, any changes to the agenda, Darren? Okay. We had minutes sent to us from January 13th. I believe Darren made some adjustments to those minutes.
Correct.
Yes.
That was fine.
Okay, so the minutes will stand as amended. Okay, consideration of accounts payable.
I believe, Donna, each gave you a copy.
Yeah.
And those are the accounts payable. Okay. Any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, we'll go on. Project manager report.
Well, we talked last week a little bit about what's going on at the courthouse. The restrooms were moving along pretty good. I'm sure by this week they're progressed even farther. The equipment for the elevator should be arriving, I think, next week. They're supposed to be shipping here, so that way we can pay the equipment part of that PO, and our equipment will be here. The sheriff and the jail staff believes that we want to hold off on the installation of that because of the location of where they'll be coming from and the length of time that they'll be going back and forth. I think to the KC metro area. We don't want them coming back, going home every week and coming back every week, working on that jail, and it's roughly a 6-week project, so limit that exposure to the staff up there, because that just doesn't just affect the sheriff's office, but also the jail staff, Hayes PD, as well as the dispatch center downstairs. So that's on that. The EFS project was done, as I reported last week, and the batteries, kind of the same situation for the communications center. We took delivery of those, got them all carried downstairs, but we're going to hold off on the installation of those until after the COVID-19 stuff passes as well. So.
Okay.
Darren, you're saying the crew that actually is going to fix the elevator or do the work is in the Kansas City area?
Correct. They were working out there, and that's where they're from. So by the time they come to work and go home for the weekend and come back for roughly 6 weeks, that's a lot of exposure and contact that they'll be having with public safety staff that we didn't feel would be necessary. And the elevator's still working. I know it goes down every once in a while with a couple issues, but we've been fortunate enough to get it fixed to keep it operational at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay. And we will adjourn the Public Building Commission meeting at 5:03. Okay, now we'll call to order the Ellis County Board of Commissioners meeting. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Don, if you want to call the roll.
Okay, Commissioner Dean Hazelhorse.
Present.
Commission Chair Butch Schleier.
Present.
Commissioner Dustin Roth.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Okay. Any changes to the order of business? I think we're going to add Jason, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I will put Jason in after the household hazardous waste. Okay, we don't have any prior minutes. I need a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Any issues from persons not on the order of business? Mr. Brown?
Good evening, Commissioners. I was tardy in getting this in, so it's an addendum to our jail food service again. I know that we just visited this on March the 2nd, I believe was the date. We've been in contact with them, and we've discussed, should our numbers fall to a certain amount, it could cause them to stop service with us. So they have agreed to cap it basically at 20 to 29 is what they would charge us, and we'd still be able to keep our services with them. And so I have an addendum. Basically, it would save us the difference between what we're currently paying and what we will pay if we drop to that 20 or below is about 79 cents per day. So, but it does keep us in good standing with them. And so I'm basically asking the sheriff, again, is asking that you guys consider voting on this. And it reads, if the inmate county drops below 20 inmates per meal, Consolidated will invoice the county for a minimum of 20 meals at the 20 to 29 meal price rate.
Okay.
So,
We need a motion for that?
please.
Gentlemen, someone want to make a motion?
I guess I can make I'll make a motion that we do an amendment to the meal service prep at the jail. If the inmate county drops below 20 inmates per meal, Consolidation will invoice the county for a minimum of 20 meals at the 20 to 29 meal rate.
Second his motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0.
All right, Donna, you can hold on to that. It's already typed out for you. So it's just need Butch's and the sheriff's. Okay?
Okay. Monthly financial report. Did you guys go over the monthly financial report?
Yes.
Questions or concerns?
I had none.
Everything looks fine to me.
And my tablet died.
Okay, household hazardous waste rate increase. Mason?
Good evening, Commissioners. Mason Ruda, Environmental Planning Supervisor. I apologize for my Boris Johnson hair. I just wanted to come before you tonight to ask for your, blessing to change the annual rate for our regional household waste program that we charge the other counties. Currently, we charge $600 annually for the admin fee that's used for helping with disposal of the household hazardous waste, PPE collection, all the little necessities we need to run the program. Back in 1994, when the program started, we had 6 counties. Now we're up to 14, and we're still hadn't raised it since it started at $500, and then a couple years ago we upped it to $600. And I just don't think it was enough to keep the program to where it's not losing as much money. Household hazardous waste is one of those programs where across the state, it's just, we do it for the benefit of our communities. It's not something that generates revenue. But this rate increase would help offset a lot of those costs by almost doubling what the counties are paying. We had a meeting with the counties at our annual meeting back in the beginning of March, and we had asked them if they would rather us look at doing an incremental increase to get to 1,000, or if they would rather just hit 1,000. Like Osborne County does with us and a few other counties for like the e-waste. And they all said, you know what, just shoot for 1,000 and get her done now, and then we can review as prices change. I have looked at other companies to ship off with, and Clean Harbors is still the cheapest comparatively. But that would be, I guess, the company we'd continue to move forward going forward until I continue to review other companies to ship with. Are there any questions on why we would go up to 1,000, or if you have a different opinion?
No, I assume you're going to 1,000 because you need it to cover costs.
Yes.
Absolutely, and we want to cover costs, and the other counties are all in favor of doing this. They can see the need for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Questions, Commissioners?
Less losses sound good to me on this.
Yeah, I think he,
No complaints.
sounds like you did your homework, so good job.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll
do I
make a-
hear a motion?
I can make a motion. I move the commission approve changing the annual rate for the Ellis County Regional Household Waste Program from $600 annually to $1,000 annually, starting January 1st, 2021.
I'll second his motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Mason. Okay, Jason.
Maybe he has good news.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Kennedy, Ellis County Health Services. I apologize for not getting this out to you guys sooner. I did send you an email with it tonight, but if you didn't have a chance to look it over. Last week I came to you guys and you approved a replacement of an RN position at the Health Department. We had some discussion looking into the LPN versus RN. So what you see before you is basically a change to the job description to allow us the opportunity to solicit applications for an LPN position. It does identify a different separate pay grade for the LPN. I did highlight the only two changes in there. One of them is basically just changing the job description from a bachelor's degree to an associate's degree, and then the other one is the pay grade change. The significant change for us at the health department would be that one of our major programs is the WIC program. We do actually have to have an RN to do that program. However, we do currently have an RN on staff that handles most of that. So we could hire an LPN, and this really would just give us that opportunity to go out for applications and really look for the best candidate for the position. So,
Okay. Jason, what does that position start at?
the starting pay identified there is, well, this is the pay grade in effect right now. But it's 1753 would be the step one, starting at 110.
Okay.
And that's fairly in line. We called around. A lot of the health departments don't actually have LPNs on staff for the kind of the same reason as WIC is a big program for them. Phillips County does have LPNs up there. They start around $17 an hour. The hospital utilizes some LPNs, but they use them in a different capacity.
Sure.
Where we would really be expecting kind of the same as an RN. We would expect them to function mostly as as an RN outside of that WIC program. So I think that's a fair starting wage. I think it actually will be an attractive wage to a lot of LPNs in the community. So I hope that we're able to get some good applications on both sides so that we can compare the two.
Okay, I wanted to question too, you have highlighted it's associate degree.
Yes.
Now, registered nurses can also have an associate's degree. So are you sure you got the verbiage right? I'm not sure just what an LPN certification is called.
Right. This, in the job description, I left it as an associate's degree because that is the minimum job description that we'll allow. So we would be able to hire an RN or an or a LPN at that point with an associate's degree, I believe. I can look into that though and make sure that we have that 100% correct so that we can accept those.
Sure. I just wouldn't want a LPN that could be good and qualified not apply for it because of the associate's degree wording, if indeed that does affect that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll look into that to make sure. I'll make sure that we word it correctly, I guess, to allow really any LPN certification for that position if that's what we want to do.
Okay. And also, Jason, you did mention to me one time that you were looking at perhaps hiring more than one nurse and making them part-time, things like that, or is that still a consideration?
You know, it would be a consideration, honestly, right now. In the place that we're at and what's going on right now, part-time staff is not probably, they would help us in an overflow capacity, But we really need to have the flexibility. We really need to have that full-time position in there so that we can take Carla or whoever, take them away from seeing patients. And so I'm just not sure that one nurse in the clinic full-time would be able to give us that flexibility that we truly need. So we do still, we actually have a part-time person right now that's come over from EMS. We're kind of evaluating that as we move forward. But I think we would struggle if we stayed with an absolute part-time position. I actually talked to Carla about it, and she had some concerns with that as well. So that's kind of why we're moving forward with looking at a full-time position. Now, it really comes down to having qualified applicants and having good people that are going to help the organization out.
Well, this whole pandemic situation does put a whole different perspective on it.
Oh,
It's I'll tell you what would have been conceivable a month ago is truly not conceivable as far as operations right now. And so it's hard to plan, it's hard to make your plans now in the middle of a pandemic for what is going to be like afterwards. But I will say prior to even the pandemic, we did utilize both nurses, and especially, we have to have at least the capacity of two so that one of them can be gone on vacation, because we can't do anything if we don't have one. And then you bring this situation in, and we really do need that help to be able to pull someone away from the front line and dedicate them to the contact tracing and
Absolutely.
everything else that's going on right now. And it's actually not just unique. Well, as you know, it's not unique just to pandemics. We have contact tracing that goes on year round with other infectious diseases as well. It's just not quite as labor intensive and not quite as grand of scale, but it is something that we deal with year round.
Sure.
doesn't catch the news wire as much.
Yeah, it's less impact. Every health department across the country. It's not. This is the contact tracing and the epidemiology side of things is not. It's not new to us in the public health world. It's just this is a much larger scale than we normally deal with.
Absolutely.
Well, it looks like an attractive job, and it's got good daytime, stable hours, so hopefully we get some good candidates from this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I actually like the idea of opening it up to the LPN. I think that gives us a lot wider swath of people, and we can really, at that point, pick a good person for the position
Right.
and pick a good person for the organization. So,
Absolutely. Okay.
this will take a motion if you guys are okay moving forward this idea. And I will be sure before we move forward that the wording is correct as far as allowing for LPNs.
Okay.
And if anything changes, I'll be sure and let you guys know.
Okay, sounds good. Do I hear a motion, Jim?
You need a motion tonight before you change the wording or not? You just need a motion to advertise for the position?
Yeah, I would like tonight
Let's
so that
do
we can
that.
get this out. And
You good with
then
that,
if
Butch?
you guys are,
I'm good with it.
I was gonna say, it's really an approval of the pay range, if you guys are okay with that. And then I'll be sure that the terminology is correct when
The
we,
110 and 113 pay range.
yeah.
Okay.
But you're just wanting the motion for the 110 or not, or?
The 113 is already currently approved. That is for the RM. The only change would be adding in the LPN pay range of the 110.
Okay. I can make a motion. Let me know if I need to amend this motion. I move we allow for the job title Public Health Nurse to allow for pay grades for the LPN 110 and RN 113 position, and for the Health Administrator to open that position for hire.
I think that'll
Good with
cover
that? Yeah. I'll second his motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No?
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
All right. I will give you guys a quick update. Obviously, over the weekend, you guys saw we do have two active cases of COVID-19 in Ellis County. These are two independent cases, really have no connection between the two of them outside of they're both Ellis County residents. As noted in the press releases, there is not a strong travel piece to either one of them, meaning that neither one of them has traveled outside of Ellis County or to a high-risk area. So we do at this point believe that at least their infection was acquired locally. So They're actually both doing well. We on the contact tracing side, we follow up with them every single day. We also immediately upon notification, we notify anyone who was a contact. So contacts as determined by KDHE are people that have been within 6 feet for greater than 10 minutes, within closer than 6 feet for greater than 10 minutes. Any people that we identify through that contact tracing at this point is put into 14-day quarantine. So we do have several. We have actually not as many as what we expected, but a few people in quarantine associated with each case. And then we follow up with them. KDHE actually does not require us to follow up with them every single day if they're just in quarantine. However, we are following up with them just to make sure that they're doing okay, that they're getting the medical care they need. Currently, right now, everyone involved really is doing really well. They're in home isolation or home quarantine. KDHE actually updated their, and this is a question you guys might get asked. It's something that we get asked. As far as isolation and quarantine, the differences between the two. By KDHE, there actually is no difference between the two right now. There used to be CDC verbiage is a little bit different, but right now, as far as what the general public needs to know, isolation and quarantine are the same thing. You really can have no contact with the outside world or with other people. You can go outside of your home as long as solo exercise, something being in your backyard, things like that, but it's really that not having any contact with other people. Now, if someone tests positive, as of the KDHE 4/7 of 2020, they updated their guidelines. If you test positive for COVID-19, you are in mandatory isolation per us through the KDHE for 7 days post start of symptoms. So if they have symptoms on Monday, it's 7 days from Monday, they're in home isolation, or 72 hours post fever. So if they get to Saturday, let's say, or their last day, let's say they get to Sunday, and they spike a fever on Sunday, then they continue and stay in isolation until they are 72 hours post fever without any fever reducing medications. When the guidelines were first put out, it was kind of 14 days as a blanket. Now, if you have a test and you are symptomatic, it's 7 days post symptom or 72 hours post fever without any fever reducing medications. Now, the quarantine side, the people that have had contact but have not tested positive or have not been symptomatic, they are actually in 14-day quarantine because the latency period of the virus is 2 to 14 days. So if during that 14 days they show no symptoms or any reason to test, then they would be released from quarantine at the completion of that 14-day. If any time during that they show symptoms, then they would be directed to their primary care physician to get tested. Once they get tested, then that changes. If they're positive, then they would go to an isolation order. If they're negative, they stay in quarantine for the duration of the 14 days.
So a person could be exposed to this virus and be in a quarantine situation for 7 days prior to having any symptoms, have symptoms for another 7 or 10 days, and then wait 7 more days after symptoms have abated.
Yes.
So it can be an extensive period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it really comes down to if they stay asymptomatic, it's 14 days. If they test positive and stay asymptomatic, it's a minimum of 7 days. Now that is at my direction as the public health officer. It's my direction. If we see any indication that they still might have the ability to spread, then we can extend that. But it's a minimum of 7 days or 72 hours post fever, and it gets a little confusing as well with residents of the same household. So if you have one member that tests positive, that member might actually be out of it. It sounds weird, but that member could be out of isolation sooner than the rest of the family because they're 7 days post symptoms or the 72 hours, where the rest of the family, if they're asymptomatic, they're in it for 14 days.
If you had a family of 4 and they gradually all got it, you could be in isolation for 2 months.
It can really add up, and the numbers really add up as you're looking back too. So when we do contact tracing now, we go back 48 hours pre-symptom, or if they're not symptomatic, they don't generally have a test, but it's pre-symptom or pre-day of test. We go back 48 hours prior to that now. So if you look at all those numbers, it gets to be where there's quite a few days adding up, and then you figure in a 14-day latency period of the original person. You could be back a month or so and still doing some of the contact tracing and running that stuff down. So that's what we've been doing. Even with just 2 cases, it it is considerably labor intensive to run all of that down and find people. So but we do think that currently right now, anyone who has had contact, at this point, anyone who has had contact with either subject has been notified by our office, and they are in home quarantine or home isolation.
Okay, sounds good.
Jason, one question I've been getting a lot of is, at what point will we be able to access, as the general public, and you might not know the answer to this, the tests for antibodies? The idea that maybe we carried it and are over it.
Yeah. So antibody testing is available at the state level. I believe KDHE has access to them. I'm not sure the number that they had. Dr. Norman's talked about it a couple of times. I don't know as far as if they will make it readily available to like private labs or to people. We have not gotten anything on the public health side, at least from KDHE, stating that we will be part of a first push trial or anything like that. With the limited number of cases we have here, I find it unlikely that they would do, I know Dr. Norman's plan with that is kind of what he calls population studies, where they actually just go out and test people who aren't symptomatic but may have been exposed, and then on the other side test people who were positive, and to see if they have developed that. So I think the state's looking at doing that as part of some population studies, and with us having limited cases at this point, I'm not sure we would be part of that initial group. But it's obviously a possibility, and there's some hope on the horizon as far as the testing goes. There's several different processes for testing now. And so I think they are ramping up the testing, and there will be some availability. I just don't know when it will make it to Ellis County.
Awesome. So, yeah, the story, or I don't remember how I heard it, but they were pumping out 50,000 tests a day, which seems like a lot until you realize there's 327 million people in our country, and so it takes a long time. And, you know, of course, all these people who think that they may have had it and decide they want to see if they had it, they would love to, but the idea is you got to go to places where there's been quite a bit of it, and also the idea that we're using now plasma from people who do have the antibodies to treat tougher cases.
There's quite a few. You know, the U.S. has done a good job, I think, of ramping up on the treatment side as well. They are pushing out some things. There is some good, at least good anecdotal evidence out there. They keep talking about the lack of really clinical trials for some of this stuff. Well, we have a condensed time frame. They're trying to operate on that and try to get things out. But I do think there's some good anecdotal evidence currently for a lot of different treatment processes. And then on the testing side of things, we got to be careful when we hear numbers from the state side or when we hear numbers from the government. We got to be careful. A lot of times they're talking about the testing material. So the testing material is actually what the lab has. So they might say, well, we have 50,000 tests, we have 100,000 tests. Well, that's the material at the lab. They might not have that piece in the field as far as the sampling process. So there was a shortage of the sampling swabs. There was a shortage of some of the transport media. They have rectified a lot of that. And actually, Dr. Norman just today came out and said that they've actually came up with a process for making the swabs in 3D printers. And 3D printers are readily available in doctors' offices. There's a few here at Fort Hays State. You know, so those are kind of readily available, and if we can start building some of those processes. So there's a lot of numbers associated with this, and being sure that we're getting the correct numbers associated with the correct terminology is sometimes tough. And you know, it's people really need to be cognizant of getting that good information and paying attention to the good information so that there's not that confusion out there.
Good.
Okay, any questions?
You got them all covered.
Okay,
right.
thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, moving on. Sales tax election results. Darren?
I figured Butch wanted to do that one.
Evening, Commission. It's Darren Myers, Interim County Administrator. I just thought since we finally get to know the results of many months of hard work with the sales tax election. Now that we have the results, we can kind of start planning a little bit more precise about how we want to proceed into the future compared to what we've been telling everybody for the last several months. So with that, I got a whole slew of questions, so I can start preparing at least to get us into the second round for the budget for 2021. And part of the bullets I had on here are part of the questions I have, but I think one of the big questions that would start off the conversation is our road tour that's scheduled coming up on the 22nd. I don't think I got to visit with Dean as much about this today, but our current interest rates for bonding are really low. They're about half of what they were a month ago. So I would almost suggest not postponing or rescheduling the road tour in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, just because if we prolong that, it's going to prolong us to know how much, an idea of how much we're going to need for if we want to look at a bond. If the commission still wants to look at a bond, I guess should be the start of that. I know that was part of our discussion at the town hall meetings and with the public, is that general sales tax could potentially be used for a bond for projects. So I guess I would open the discussion up with the commission on how you'd like to proceed with that.
Okay, gentlemen, any thoughts, ideas about this?
He's right. I mean, interest is as low as it's been forever.
Yes, it has.
I mean, I think it's probably something we need to really look at on the serious side of things. As Bill can come up here and tell us, we know we have lots of things that need fixed.
Well, I think in regards to the road tour, I think we either should proceed as scheduled or just cancel it. I'm not in favor of postponing it.
Yeah.
Postponing it gets us nothing.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think let's proceed as scheduled. We'll take the proper precautions, but I think we need to look at this now, and if we're talking about bonding, that'll give us an idea of what kind of bond we would be looking at and in identifying the real problem childs out there that we have. I can think of 3-4 of them off the top of my head that I know have come up a lot during the sales tax discussion. I'm not really in favor of bonding out a ton of things right at the beginning, but especially while interest rates are low, I think it's a good time for us to take a hard look at these projects and at least get low interest rates on them.
I think we need to identify maybe 3 or 4 that are critical.
Yep. Yeah, I can think of
Go
Cathedral,
And
Northwest
with
Florida.
that, maybe means we're supposed to do the distancing thing. Maybe we can take 3 vehicles and do it, or 4 vehicles and do it, or whatever you guys think. I mean, I don't mind driving mine and take one of the guys from Public Works with me, and, if you guys, and Bill has a pickup, Kurt has a pickup, Jason has a vehicle, I mean, we can kind of spread out if we're gonna do it. I mean, I guess just to practice the safety side of it, means we're supposed to be doing that. I guess our health director left, but might not be a bad idea to do that. I guess your guys' thoughts, but
Well, if we look at the 6-foot rule, 2 people in a pickup would violate that.
I didn't say they was riding in front with me, Butch. They can ride in the van.
I think we throw a mask on. I'm not too worried about it from my perspective, but
That's kind of the same here. I'm not too worried about it. I don't know who Bill would plan to take along on that road tour, but I don't know that we need everybody
Yeah.
from Public Works.
And
So,
if he takes, I mean, I got a 4-door pickup. I can take mine, and you can take yours if we can get, people in, distribute them out. And Darren's got a 4-door too. We could take 3 pickups and get everybody that needs to go.
Good evening, Bill Ring, Public Works Director. In the past, it was always open because it is a public meeting. And a couple of years ago, we decided with the clerk's position that at the time, previous county administrator, he and I would take the minutes for the clerk, which solved, and that also freed Don up for not having to go out and look at roads all day, which is fine. So the 3 commissioners were always invited. The county administrator, the interim county administrator, the media has always had an open invitation. Last year, I believe, was the first time that one member from the media did choose to come, and That's the first time I've had in my 4 years out there.
Yeah.
And then I just bring along Kurt as the road supervisor. I mean, I think last year we had the van, so we had Dave Hoffman come along, that way he drove, and that way Kurt and I could both talk to you, we didn't have to be driving.
Yeah.
We can change that up a little bit.
Yeah, we do have to keep Coma in mind as far as, I guess if the press just lets us know if they'd want to be along for the road tour, we'll accommodate however we need to.
I just think the appearance is very important right
Yeah.
now, that I think if we did do this, that, if we segregate it,
Yeah.
that we take whatever the proper amount, and you're correct, Commissioner, we have the same problem every morning. We send 3 guys out to help on a road crew. So, ride with the windows down,
Oh, sure.
things like that, but I don't think probably renting a van is probably, pardon the pun, but a healthy idea right now.
We probably don't need to do that.
Right, and that'd save us a few $100s also.
Sure.
I think you're 100% correct, though, that this is the type of things that the people of this county are interested in, what we're going to discuss about. I mean, what we're going to do to fix our infrastructure is important to them.
And then, again, in the past, which last year we started in the afternoon, which we need to discuss a time frame, but in all the previous years, we always went and it was an all-day affair, usually 8:30 to, 3:30, 4 o'clock, but we also got lunch. So if you want to consider that, I need to kind of know something. There's plenty of people that are selling box lunches, so that's not going to be a problem. But I just kind of want to put that together. I mean, we can bring a cooler along with some bottled water and whatnot, but
Sure.
I'd be happy to pay for my lunch on that if you just decide where you want to
Not
get
a
it
problem.
from. Yeah,
That's not a problem. I would like to do an all-day type thing, too.
I think so, especially in light of recent
I think we
events.
had it scheduled for starting at 8:30, I believe.
That's what I
that's
thought.
normally we would meet here at 8:30.
It was like, I had it on mine, 8:30 to 3 is what I had in my
Okay.
calendar.
And I believe if the commission is just, each one of you riding a separate vehicle, we split it up, we'll meet coma requirements, so that way there's not
Sure.
Not talking in
conversations
between.
going along without
Sure.
everybody there, and then we can reconvene at each site and have the open discussion there and
I'm happy to take my pickup if need be too.
Yeah, well, we got it.
figure it out.
I only got a 2-door pickup.
Yeah. You can't ride with me, never mind. Coma.
No, because the meeting starts at 8:30. When we call the meeting to order, the meeting starts here.
Yeah, I know. He can't ride with me separate from everybody else,
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Why?
Because the press has to be there. He can't ride with me separate from everybody
Yeah,
else. during open.
commissioners should be broken up.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done, I mean, we've rode together in the past, but.
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
meeting doesn't come, which they never have in the past, you've got to go without them.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's
yeah.
not, I don't think there's a requirement per se, but anyway, we'll work it out, whatever.
Importantly, we
Oh, yeah.
can't discuss road projects if he and I are together, yeah.
Well, we did it via your speakerphone one year.
Oh, that might be something to
Because
think
just,
about.
with Bluetooth, that it worked, because there's, if we do spend the day, I mean, there's, maybe 30-minute drives between the locations if you want to actually see some of the, like, I think if we're going to spend the whole day, and I appreciate you doing that, we need to look at the bridge over the Saline River up on the Ellis Blacktop.
Absolutely.
That's a good 30-plus minute drive from here, so, I mean, so I will work out, I'll get an agenda put together
Okay.
as to where to go, and then we just know at the last little bit, I mean, if we can work back here and, pick up lunch, and maybe we could sit down here, someplace, and then we could continue discussing things. That would work for you. Okay?
Yeah, let's proceed.
All right, I'll work with the county administrator and come up with a plan. Okay, and
Sounds good, Bill.
if the meeting would like to attend, please let me know. If not, that's fine as well. Okay, and we'll do the minutes, Donna, for you? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Darren?
So continuing on, like I said, I got about 10 different things here, but just to go down the list, that kind of knocked off one of them with, I'm hearing the commission doesn't want to prioritize a couple projects. whether it be 3 or 4 or 5, we'll identify those over that road tour, so that way we can work closer with our financial advisor down in Wichita to figure out what kind of bonding it would take get some more information on that. Just because it's going to be around the corner within 2 months, the outside subsidies are going to be coming in. I know last couple of weeks we talked about what kind of reduction we'd have to be looking at if the sales tax didn't pass. So I thought, what's the commission's thoughts for starting to pass the word on to them so they can start working on their budgets to present to the commission, I believe, in mid-June is what we have scheduled.
I know my thoughts on the outside subsidies. I think last year it was a very good exercise to reset expectations. The county can't be everything to everybody. It just can't be. And so I think as we look forward, I would like to see our mental health funding. I would like to see that restored. I think that's very important. And I probably would also like to see the Soil Conservation Service funding restored. I know the farmers really took a hit with that. And probably I would like to see everyone else come in about the same as what they ended with last year. I don't know if your commissioners are in agree with that, or?
I'd like to add probably DS&W. I'd like to review theirs. I know in the
Okay.
past 5 years, we've cut them and cut them and cut them, and I guess I'd like to see
Okay,
some of that
add,
possibly be restored. It may do
Sure.
a lot for Ellis County and Northwest Kansas, and mental health definitely. I know Walt Hill is, I don't know exact numbers anymore, what we've taken from him over the past few years, but, you know, they do a lot to help save population in our jail, as you know from being in
sure,
that.
absolutely,
And, I mean, even in the health department, I mean, it just, they do a lot for us.
absolutely.
So I'd really like to look at that.
Yeah, I would agree. The health tax, I think, was designed for mental health services, so High Plains Mental Health should have some restored funding. I believe that was partially what people were paying for. What was at a lot of the discussions we had. I was surprised he made it to as many as he did.
Yes,
And I would agree with DSNWK. I think that was one of the tougher cuts that we made last year. Because it is a big funded agency, it always takes a bigger hit when things like that hit, but we're talking about, you know, at risk in our community, and I think that is definitely something that I did not want to continue to have to do, and so DSNWK, and then for sure we can have a discussion about, I think, all of them as they come in, but at least if we can talk to them about trying to maintain what we had last year with the others. You know, the other thing is we've changed the nature of how we collect taxes now for 10 years, and we've aligned ourselves with the city of Hayes in the way that they collect taxes, and so I know a lot of their outside funding is aligned with that as well. So it's something for us to keep in mind. We can think of it as an investment in some nature, as long as
Sure.
we're continuing the vitality of our county. So
I don't think any of those outside agencies should look at further cuts.
no, I don't think so either. I think this was a statement from the people of Ellis County that they had seen us do enough cutting. Hopefully they can maintain and talk to us fully about what they need, and we can make good decisions for them.
Right.
But I really think High Plains Mental Health was number one, a organization that we could fund with this health tax, and something I think everybody knows is critical, especially as we watch our economy do what it's doing. So mental health will be at the top of, I think, all of our minds for a while.
I think Walt really streamlined it to the bare bone over the past few years. I mean,
He has.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to him different times, and
We kind of got lucky that the state stepped in a little bit last year. They didn't see it from both ends. They got a little bump, and so we got lucky. But it's an obligation of ours, and I think it's an important obligation. It's not a moneymaker. It's a government thing. So.
And I think with the conservation district, I mean, I think that's important too. It just saves a lot of soil erosion, and I mean, I think it's a good thing for the terrace
Absolutely.
rebuilt. I think it's something we
Yeah.
definitely need to look at there too.
Okay.
Yes. Soil conservation districts for the past 100 years have been a shining star of government, which is not always the thing that you find in government. So I think a good discussion with them about what they're spending the money on, what they're doing will be good. And it was tough. It was also something that was very tough from a farm kid's perspective growing up.
And they took a big hit, too.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
the exact amount anymore. I think it was 10,000.
I think 25,000 we cut them,
Yeah.
something like that.
25?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was only 10.
We cut 10. We cut 10 just from the grant funding.
Yeah, we cut a lot from
They
them.
got quite a bit. There's quite a bit more.
I'd have to look back. This year's funding is 55,000. I'm not sure
They
what
were-
it was
They were in
prior.
the 70s, I think.
Yeah, I think that came down
In the
from almost
70s, you're
80.
right.
Yeah.
I just don't remember what the
Yeah.
amount was
I
anymore.
believe when they came, they said it was cutting. It was cutting quite a bit.
It was a big hit.
And that's when they came back to us to discuss, because it just didn't meet the original threshold. So that's when we made the decision to go ahead and cut that grant funding too. So if they can get at least back where they're at, we can always have another good discussion about the grants but I think I would agree with you guys. The people have spoken that at one point last year, I think we took a lot of heat from people about what we had to do, but I think now they realize that we were serious about it and that it was important. And I think we're in a good position where that was, as Butch said, a good exercise in frugality. Now we get an exercise in investment and planning will be super important over the next few years.
So we don't want to get into the position we're spending everything we're
Yes.
taking in.
No,
so
absolutely not. We can't do that. We got to
it needs to be
remember.
put away.
Yeah, this is only a 10-year deal, and the taxpayers are going to be watching.
Oh, yeah, definitely, and they should.
Absolutely.
If we don't build unencumbered cash, plan, and invest in their infrastructure, they're not going to be happy with this. So
Okay. Darren,
Clarify, the soil conservation was 72,646,
72,000.
it went down to
55,
55,
so about
just under
17,000.
20,000.
17,000.
Okay.
Okay, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the position with the attorney. He had in the budget for a half an attorney, and then with not having that attorney, got rid of the legal assistant. And there was some discussion about what would happen after the sales tax, so I didn't know how the commission felt. Do we want to restore both those positions in 2021, or any other suggestions on that?
My thoughts on that is I don't think we should restore the position. We should look at what those positions cost and perhaps put some money away in an account. That way, if the new county attorney needs those positions, he can request funding, and we would have that available. But to just put it into that attorney's budget right offhand, I don't think would be the right thing to do. Anyone running for that county attorney position knows the situation as prior to the election, so they do know what they're getting into. They're going to see how they can manage it. If they need more, then they can come ask for more, and we should be prepared if they do need more. But I wouldn't want to just give it offhand, so to speak.
I think we need to wait till after the election and if there is a new attorney, then definitely see what that new county attorney brings to the plate and what they offer. They may have a totally different structure of an idea.
Right.
Yeah, that is a vibrant office because we don't control much of how they spend money. We just allot them amount of money. And I understand from Tom's perspective, then they end up fitting in pay ranges and then they have a benefits package and it ends up being what he cut. But I do think that, and if it's in contingency of some type, that we allow the new county attorney, whoever it may be, to come to us and request, that would be fine. I would like it to be them that has given up that money and them that has made those changes, and I do want to be prepared. We're talking about losing a long tenured county attorney and getting a brand new one. So especially after the courts have been shut down for a while, and Tom has already said that he's behind on some of the things he would like. So as long as we got that in the top of our mind and we figure out a way somehow in contingency to make sure we're taking care of that position.
We can figure out those two costs for the legal assistant and the attorney, and then we can put that into the budget stabilization account. And if it's not used, it'll be budgeted for, so if the new attorney wants it, we can transfer it into the account next year or into his budget, his or her. If not, it'll just roll over as unencumbered. The position won't be allocated, and but either way, the funds will be there. If not, they'll still stay unencumbered. But at least it'll be there for it.
Okay.
Next question has to do with the Treasury. Two different questions, because I know they'll be addressed. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the first round of budgets and what the commission would like to see. And with that, the commission as a group made some suggestions onto that department. And do we want to proceed with those as we discussed several weeks ago, or do you want to make any changes to that as eliminating one of the positions in the 2021 budget?
From my perspective, the situation that prompted that discussion hasn't changed. So I think I would just like to proceed with what we had started.
Yeah, I think we've made our suggestion and request. If she would like to come and discuss with us why we may be wrong about any of those suggestions, we'd be happy to have that discussion. But as now, I think we move and proceed as planned.
Okay. Next question revolves around insurance. This week, we have a meeting with the new insurance consultant talking about the different proposals that we can see for next year. However, we won't know those true rates until later this year. But one of the discussions we've had in the past, or the commission's goals in the past, was to reduce the cost share between the employer and employee from 92.5 currently down to 89. Do we want to continue down that road, or do we want to wait until we see what the proposals come several months from now?
I can start on that. I think we've had that discussion. I think we made it clear to the voters that we were trying to get that in line. I think we should be as aggressive as we can be about keeping those policies great and being right, but I still think we should go down another 3% this year until we get down about 10% of where we were last year, the 92.5. So we're at 89 now. I think we should move it to 86 over the next budget year and continue on that path and do whatever we can to make sure that their coverage is still great and not hitting them in the pocketbooks.
I agree with that, Darren. I think that's the way we need to go, and I would like to see both ways from God dang it, just blank her name. Julie, thank you. At on what both ways would look like, but I think we need to follow Dustin's path also.
And yeah, once we know what those insurance costs would be, I guess we would have a better feel for how big a hit those employees would take if we looked at a 3% or had to back that off even. But it's kind of a starting point.
I mean, she made it sound like she could reduce our costs quite a bit, and have better coverage. And I guess I want to see that in black and white.
Yeah, the big portion is what the rates are going to be next year and how much of the, if we do two different plans, how much of that partially self-funded, at what percentage do we want to fund that at, whether it be 140, 170%. That's where our fluctuation is going to be. But
Sure.
The plan that we're moving with now is whatever our current budgeted health insurance costs are, we're not to exceed that for next year. That's already a 9% savings in that line item in our budget if we can at least maintain from this year to next, which is several $100,000 already. But if we can come in at a reduced rate with the same level of benefits that we have now, it'll be a win-win for both the budget as well as the employee, because yes, they may be paying a little bit more down to that 86%, but it's going to be on a smaller amount.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they could have better benefits at a better price and also keeping the county at the better price. But when we start working on those formulas, that 86 to 89% just needed to have direction on that so we know how to start.
Will we see that like by June or July?
We'll have estimates off this year's numbers. We won't know exact numbers until around September
Not long, huh?
because they don't release the state rates because that's when the state renews for the state plan.
Okay,
What month did you say?
September.
right around September, because we have to notify the state by the end of September that we'll be coming off the plan. So we'll have a decision right there in that August, September timeframe to know what the rates are, what kind of plans we're going to go, whether it's a fully funded or we do the medical expense reimbursement program as a supplemental insurance.
Okay.
So hopefully we can at least hold the line, and I believe if we bump down to our 86% contribution, there should be some savings, and then maybe more if we actually saved money off of this. Most importantly, I think if we go down to our 86, I just want to make sure our employees have as good or better coverage than they had before.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want to cut benefits. I mean,
Yep.
want to keep them the same or better. Okay.
She seemed confident, so like
I know she
you said,
did.
so you see it in black and white, I'll feel
That's the
better.
thing.
Kind of just like the sales tax results.
That was before a pandemic, though, too. So insurance companies have a funny way of always telling you there's a reason why your insurance should go up. So
Next question is going forward with the projected forecast of what we want to do in regards to the property tax is how do you want to proceed with the annual budget for next year? We could increase it by 1.8%. That's the max allowable by the state. I showed Commissioner Rhodes some projections that if we did not raise property taxes at all for the next 10 years and we just use the sales tax to offset that, not even halfway through those 10 years, we're right back in the same place we are now. So just wanted some direction on what you'd like to at least plan for at this point.
From my perspective, I'd like to see us look at that 1.8%. We're going to lose a lot of oil money next year, and we do have to consider that because we'll never make it up. Oil will come back in the future, but once we don't get it, we don't get it either.
Yeah, with what
So-
the oil is looking at doing now, if it's about half of what it is this year, which is they've already reduced it to,
$23 a barrel on the evaluation, what Lisa said 2 weeks ago or whenever that was.
even if we raise the property, that line item by the 1.8%, that doesn't even cover half the losses gained or losses in revenue from oil and gas.
Sure.
Lisa, did you ever come up with just an estimate of what we're going to lose for sure? It's too early to tell.
It's too early.
I know. I just thought maybe you had a figure out there in mind that you wanted to share. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I would say that it's a little too early for me to talk about what we should do on property taxes. I imagine that we will have to be somewhere in the 1 to 5, 1.8% range. The one thing that is always on my mind from a sales tax election is and I just had it pulled up here, 2,261 people that voted no on Proposition 1 and 2,630 people that voted no on Proposition 2. Of those people, if it's possible for us to keep their property taxes in line, I will say that it is a point of pride for me that we are the 105th out of 105 counties in property tax valuation payout. So I think as long as we keep that in mind, that's what we are good at and what we should be good at, I think the Ellis County voters have agreed that we've been good with the money, and that's great. But there's so many ifs so far in the budget for the next year that I would like to talk about whether or not that can get rid of some property taxes.
I do think a consideration we have to have, though, is that we don't know what the legislature might do with that tax lid, but
Yeah.
it sounds like they want to squeeze it down even harder.
And that's the hard thing from the legislature. I think it's the thing that we need to discuss with them. It incentivizes us to go to the cap every single year,
It does.
and it doesn't allow us to be
Well, there's no flexibility.
good managers with flexibility in our budgets. So that is definitely a discussion that needs to go to the next level of our government. That sometimes I believe that's the problem is they forget that we're up for election every 4 years as well, and we have to answer to our voters and how we spent and how we taxed. But sometimes that's their little cookie to the voter that I might have raised your taxes on income, but I stuck it to the county so they can't do it. Well,
Sure.
maybe all those voters think the counties spend their money a little better than the state does. So maybe they should have that discussion in their mind, for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to have that discussion down the road a little bit.
Yeah, nothing's set in stone, but I just wanted to see, just so when we start looking at it, it's an easy thing to change, but in the overall perspective of it, just going back in perspective, looking at whatever that percentage could be compared to what our insurance rates were with the state plan, that tax lid did not even allow us enough to compensate for what we were paying in healthcare insurance. So just between the two, right there alone, we're already having to cut annual budgets. So that's one of the ways that tax lid is ineffective. It doesn't help compensate for all that. One thing that was pointed out to me this afternoon, is just a quick thing, is we have a line item in our budget for the juvenile services that we pay for out of the budget. Over the last couple of years, it has been budgeted for only half of what the expenditures are, and those are state mandated fees that we pay. Bobby within the clerk's office gave me some numbers this afternoon, and over the last couple of years, we've over 1 year almost tripled what has been budgeted. So when we look at what the 3 years trend are, I'm going to suggest that we increase that line item to match what we're actually being statutorily required to pay for. But just so when you see that jump from a $24,000 line item to roughly about 60, that's the reasons for, is because of the previous year's trends for that.
Okay.
That's great, Darren. I think it's important that we understand what we're actually spending, especially on the statutorily required expenses, because sometimes we get through the budget and we think we've done a good job, and then we realize that some of these aren't realistic, and we have to spend that money anyway. So at least this keeps the budget line, in order. And
A lot of
glad you saw
that'll be
that.
through good education also. I know we have a lot of people that, even when we were doing the sales tax, had no idea what we're statutorily required to pay for. I had a lot of calls on different things, and people didn't know that. Why don't the state pay for that? I said, well, because they made us pay for it now.
Yeah.
So
We're extension of the state. They tell us what to pay for, so,
really are at the end of the day.
yep.
We've kind of hit the topics for the general sales tax, the healthcare tax, as we presented basically 4 main things that we were going to use that fund for. So I just want to go over what those were. One, we already clarified with restoring the High Plains mental health out of that healthcare tax. The second item was to offset the difference in revenues for the health department, allocate that amount for what his budget is compared to what his revenues are, put that into the health department. The third one was to have a $170,000 transfer, a budgeted transfer in EMS for their capital improvements for ambulances and such. And the fourth, the remaining amount of those 4 items would be to offset the general fund revenue for EMS. Is that still the direction the commission would like to use those funds for?
Sounds like a good plan.
Yep, I believe that's the way we've planned it and talked to people about it, yes.
I guess I did lie. The general tax, I didn't lie. One more thing about that. So going back to the general tax for road improvements, I got to hit this one more time. The feds have been talking about having another CARE Act come out for infrastructure. So there might be some grant paperwork that we might be able to fill out to help offset the Northwest Business Corridor to help fund that.
That'd be great.
So we might keep that in mind. I know Bill and I haven't had a chance to visit about that yet, but we need to keep that in the back of our mind. If we either have to bond it or if we can get another grant to help offset that 1.7 million that we're not short. We've identified funds for it, but if they don't come out of Ellis County coffers, that would be even better.
Sure.
The second part to that would be prior to the knowing of the sales tax, the commission discussed about writing a letter to the city of Hayes in regards to their portion of the general sales tax that would pass, in regards to asking them to help fund the Northwest Business Corridor more than what they have in the past. So I was going to ask what the commission would like to do in regards to that.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, they're going to benefit from that more than we are at the end of the day. I mean, collecting city sales tax.
Sure. I think it'd be a good idea to do. The city of Hayes is collecting quite a windfall from that sales tax. So if they could help us a little bit on that quarter project, that'd be great.
That'd be good.
I can tell you guys what I had in my mind, and it was something I discussed a little bit with Darren earlier today. Darren, do you have the number in front of you of the funding that the city of Hayes has given up so far? I believe it
That
was
last check that or the last amount that we approached the city to was $284,000 and some odd dollars.
Yeah, it was 284 and something. So my thought process, and they will see hits to their budget because of what is going on with this pandemic, but my thought process is our request is to get them to $1 million in funding towards the project, meaning $716,000 and some odd dollars over 2 years. $358,000 per year for the first 2 years of the sales tax would be what I would think we should request. Gets them to a full $1 million invested. The other great thing about this, and part of the thing that I think helps us in the process, as people have said, as we've done the Northwest Corridor project, is what's in it for you, right? Well, now there actually is something because we will collect sales tax. So the idea is we go in together, we become partners in this with the city of Hayes, or they come in and actually join in on the partnership. $1 million is a big ask, but they're seeing revenues that they weren't expecting. And I would hope that at $358,000-ish per year for 2 years, that we wouldn't be asking too much, and that they could see the benefit for both of us now with sales tax revenue. So that was my idea, get them to the $1 million mark.
Oh, I think we could, that's doable.
No, it is, very much so.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of projects for them that we have never gotten, I guess, reimbursed for.
And I think we will
Bouldering can
continue.
attest to that. We
Yeah.
built a runway, if
And
I'm
they'll-
not mistaken,
And they'll probably be asking for more.
and I mean, really,
Yep.
I think the county has done a great job of helping the city out, very much so over the past many years.
And I think that we'll continue to do that because they're a
Exactly.
big economic driver.
Sure.
And I think in this, I go back to it again, the aligning of our interest is really good in this sales tax revenue. And we can become mutual partners on a big project out there that should generate quite a bit of sales tax revenue. But also, it's hopefully a windfall of cash for them that they can help us all throughout the extraterritorial jurisdiction. There are a lot of roads that people don't know if they're county or city of Hayes roads, and there's a lot of taxpayers that drive those roads. So if we can take this money and do a good job with it, as we've discussed earlier, I think over the next 10 years, it'll be real important to the voters to see the work that we do. So.
It's all about a partnership.
And as long as you guys think that that's okay, maybe Darren, if you could do the math for us on it and draft the letter and then send it out to us to look it over.
Yeah, I can have a draft put up and we can review it next week at the commission meeting. I should be able to get something together by then.
Okay, then we could have it to him right
Or do
there
you want to
next
wait longer? It's
Thursday.
up to,
I think right away is fine. I think as long as they know that they do have some tax revenue coming in, that they could budget the next 2 years, and if need be, they can just give up their portion in our bond or whatever, so.
I think with that, I will let it rest for now. It gives us a good guidance on a whole bunch of different line items just to clarify on. That'll help get that budget closer as we move throughout the process here. Get
Okay.
it closer so you have a more realistic idea of what we're looking at come mid-May when you meet with each of the departments at the special meeting for the budgets. And I'm assuming the commission would rather keep them at the same dates now since we don't have to make further cuts and reductions, the harder part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think now is the time to open up our relationship with Ranson Financial about what we might be looking at doing for a bond. Because we'll have a little bit of cash left over that we would need to put into the Northwest Business Corridor, and then there's multiple other projects I'm sure we're going to see that are in serious need of repair, and that's what we want to see is the serious issues going on. So,
Okay. Okay, moving on. County Administrator report. Darren?
It's not done yet.
One of the commissioners asked me about future meetings for the Board of County Commissioners and how the commission would like to proceed, whether we stay as we are or if we move to a complete online format as the COVID-19 gets closer to home. So I just opened it up to that. I asked Mike to do a little bit of research if we could go to a Zoom or a certain type of meeting, and we talked to our county attorney to make sure that we're able to do so. So I'll let Mike speak the technical jargon.
Good evening, Mike Leiker, Ellis County IT Director. Yeah, I did some research, have been doing research on live streaming or using online meeting software to present this meeting. And it is something we can do. There are some hoops we got to jump through to make that happen. But we can use online meeting software to meet your needs so that you're not coming in and, unnecessarily or exposing each other to whatever we're exposing it to. So I think we can make that happen. I did some testing today, and I've got a couple options that we can do. So if you choose to do that, we can make that happen.
I don't like technology that much. I prefer to keep it like it is. Gentlemen?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm glad that we would have it in, at least the back pocket if we ever needed it. Right now, I just don't see a whole lot of concern from my perspective. I guess this is an ongoing thing that can change very quickly, and then maybe we have to relook at it. So I'm glad you've done the back research for us. But as of right now, I'm fine with this. And luckily, we have a nice big room. I told the city of Hayes that their little room, it's kind of tough to stay 6 feet away from other people there. So even our seats, I think, are pretty close to that. So, but as of right now, I don't think we need to do that with only a couple cases confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I did ask Darren about that today. I guess my concern was if one of us should happen to get quarantined for 14 days or listening to Jason, it could be,
Yeah.
the worst case scenario, we could be quarantined for a month.
That's a good point. I think we should at least have the access and ability to run a meeting by ourselves away from the
We're
others.
sitting on the KEC board now. All of ours are done by Zoom. It works perfect. I mean, I'm kind of like Butch as Mike knows, I'm not very technology savvy. But after I got through the Zoom deal the first time, it was perfect on our KAC meetings, and even our meeting we did with Jerry Moran the other night, it was all through Zoom and help.
And
But if I can figure it out, Butch, trust me, I know you can.
And I think it's good to keep it on the back burner, but if we need to go there, we definitely should. Yeah, especially if one of us would have to be quarantined.
Yeah.
The other thing is I would ask our council the legality and make sure that that's something that we can do.
Yeah, we can. When I visited with him this afternoon. That's exactly what the school board is doing, which he sits on as the counselor for them as well. They limit their commissioners to they actually come to their meeting room, but everybody in the audience, whether it be the media or anybody addressing the commission, as Mike would be now, would all be via Zoom. So that way they limit the contact from outside coming in.
So anybody who would want to attend the meeting would be on Zoom.
Correct.
Sedgwick County switched over, I believe, today that was their first. I don't know if they use Zoom, they use something. I heard them talking about it last night on the news. They went to something where the public can't attend anymore, but even the commissioners don't attend either. They'll attend from their offices.
Yeah, we don't have an office.
Well, that's true.
There is a point of clarification. The people that would attend the Zoom meeting would be those of you on the bench. The general public could watch through Facebook or YouTube Live like they currently do. They wouldn't have to log into the actual online meeting. They could just watch and see the Zoom or WebEx or whatever we're using.
Could they ask a question or pose a comment?
it becomes a little bit of a challenge when you do that, but they can do that. We just have to make that option available if necessary. It's my understanding that it is not necessary. That is your option to do that, to choose whether there is public comment or not.
That was
would be
confirmed today by Mr. Jeter. It's the parameters are set by the commission, whether you allow public comment or questions. And if we would just notate that on the agenda item that we're having a virtual meeting, and just so the public would know that.
So they could maybe submit their public comment for someone to read via
Yeah,
letter or
absolutely. They could
something.
shoot
Okay.
us one of the emails and we could address it that way.
Okay.
And would the department heads who had to present, how would they present their issues?
Anyone who wanted to present could join that meeting as well.
Okay,
If they were on the agenda and scheduled to present, rather than standing here, they would log in as an attendee of that meeting and have the ability to, you could open up the floor for them, the virtual floor, for them to speak, and they would have their opportunity.
and does that cost anything?
We currently have a license for Zoom and for GoTo Webinar, so something we've already been paying for, so there's no added cost to that.
Okay, and if we ever did go to Zoom meetings, then the commissioners will have to come in and sign documents.
Right.
I think the best thing on this is Jason is keeping an eye on this at all times. So if he ever suggested that we do this, then maybe that be when we do it. But otherwise, I just don't have a lot of concern
Or
from
if one
my.
of us gets in the situation, we can't attend meetings, and then that puts a whole different slant on it, too.
Yep.
And there's several variations on how we could do it. We could, one commissioner each week could call in and we could put the conference call, so that way we'd still separate. We could limit the public and still have a virtual meeting as we do now, just not have an audience. And then worst case, we can move to completely virtual where everybody's on a Zoom meeting.
Like our KAC meeting, we have like 30, I think 31 on Zoom when we do that, and you just keep it muted till you want to talk, and when you want to talk, take it off mute and say your piece, and then you're back on mute. But
Okay.
It works good. I think it does.
It does
Okay.
work fine, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, keep it on the back burner, Mike,
Okay.
in case we need it.
That's all I got.
Okay, county commission reports. Commissioner Hazelhurst,
Which I have nothing, sorry.
okay? Commissioner Ross,
The only thing I have is that I have filed for re-election, and I did that last Wednesday. So I really enjoy the job, and I was pleasantly surprised with, I think, how the voters of Ellis County feel we're handling their finances and how we're investing their hard-earned dollars. So
okay?
And I guess I would like to say, Butch, thanks to all the Ellis County voters that went out. I guess they didn't have to go out and vote, that stayed at home and voted and mailed their ballots back to Donna. That was great to have such a large turnout, so thank you, Ellis County, for supporting us on that.
And I do want to give the county voters a big thank you for supporting our sales tax. I also want to give recognition to Darren, Bill, and Jason for the work they done setting up those town halls and the luncheons. It was a lot of work and a lot of effort, and them guys done a really good job, and they deserve the recognition. So thank you, guys.
Yep, you did a good job.
I think a lot more people understand county government much more now because of all those meetings. And I think one of the best things that came out about it is that people now know and understand our EMS service a little better.
Sure.
And how top-notch it is.
Absolutely. And that's all I have. So our meeting will adjourn.
Hang on. I want to ask Bill a question
Yeah.
real quick. Bill, can you come up and just address something on, bring your piece of paper along, or maybe you know it off the top of your head.
Which piece of paper?
On the grader. Or I can just ask you a question, that's no big deal, you can probably tell me. That's the only one you handed us so far.
Right, I just wanted to make sure you didn't have
That
something else.
140H, how many hours is on that 2060, you know? Is that the one that has like 15 or 16,000 hours?
The trade-in,
Yeah,
and that's the one that's got a bad transmission in it.
Correct.
We're not using it.
I know you're not.
Park,
I just
right.
wondered how many thousands of hours is on that.
I think that one is actually a closer to 13,000, but it's well over the 10,000 we always strive for.
I know. That's why I thought that's the one that had 15 or 16, but
It has a head gasket problem and it has a transmission
I
problem.
know it had an engine issue, transmission's out, so. Okay. And you were looking at wanting to lease that for 7 years, and then at the end of 7 years, you'd own it, is that what I understand?
No, this should be, we would just start a lease program. That's what we had originally talked about.
That'd be straight lease only for 35.
Right, and then we would keep, all our graders would stay under their warranty, not, they would fix everything, we
So
wouldn't.
with that, it would come with that 7-year, 8,500-hour warranty? is that
Correct.
Correct?
Mhm.
So we would have no expense in that at all?
Other than routine maintenance, which we have that now, but
Fuel, et cetera, tires,
correct.
whole board. Okay.
I mean, one of the big consideration we talked of, and I mean, you can see by the pricing on here, this, and this is just a suggestion that the other commissioners, that Caterpillar called and they had one demo grader left, it'd be a 2019, so it's already a year old, and it would fall in line with the last two that you approved, but it's coming in as a leftover at 278,000. So we are right at the verge. If we wait, we're at 300,000 for a grader. We basically need to buy 2 graders a year. I mean, that's just the amount of time we put on them. So you would have, doing the purchase option we've always done in the past, we would now be up to roughly 600,000 a year in grader purchases. That's a lot of money. So that's why, you know, with some of the other things we did, and you all did that with the truck purchases, to look at what other options do we have. And so if we could buy 2 graders a year, we know it's 600. If we could get into a lease program slowly, at least transition out of it, we would have still a fixed cost, but it would be much less by running a leased piece of equipment. And then we would also cut our maintenance. I mean, if you remember, well, you two gentlemen weren't commissioners, but when we did the last engine rebuild, it was engine and transmission, and that's 2.5 years ago, 3,
2.5, yeah, probably.
2.5. That was a $62,000 expense.
And just for-
So if you look at what, you know, that's 2.5 years of payments right there on one engine. And, you know, they get used every day.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of time. So I just want to try it again, like we talked about contracting, and just what other options do we have to not have to get hit with the large cash expenditures if possible.
Were you able to hire a diesel mechanic yet?
We did, we are, I announced that at the last meeting, we are
Okay.
finally at full staff at 51 people.
Okay.
Um,
So the big question on that lease option is, are we utilizing a diesel mechanic enough? If we start getting in a situation where we're leasing.
We're behind every day now. I mean, even with, if we really should have 2 more mechanics for the amount of equipment that we service. I mean, we still are farming out a lot of work right now.
Okay.
Tire repair, you know, other trucks, like some of the older dump trucks, they go up to the dealership up on the hill.
What's the status on our other 2 dump trucks?
I was going to call him tomorrow and ask him, it should be theoretically, and I don't know if this pandemic has created a conflict for, you know, the
Factory
truck and factory business or not, to find out. But because we were talking latter part of April, early May. So we're getting close, so, and I can check with our shop foreman to see if he possibly talked to the gentleman from the dealership as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need to put that grader lease purchase on a upcoming agenda?
We were going to do that. This just came in, so I just wanted to, because we talked about, I wanted to get with you tomorrow to go over this.
I'll make a note so I don't forget.
Yeah. That we could,
Just gave us the handout tonight to look at it. I was just looking at it. for questions.
it just came in, so I thought at least that, you know, and it would be, this one would be full warranty. It's only got 30 hours on it. It'd be the same as, you know, with the last now 3 graders we've bought, they've all been demos, which saves us, and we still get full warranty, but it saves us probably, I don't know, 20,000 each on the average for the buying a leftover year behind. And, it's still got the same equipment, so, and it's not like a vehicle where you want to, try to have that latest model year. They really don't.
By demo, you mean demonstration, not demolition, right?
Could be both. If they let me drive, it would be the latter, not the former.
Just
But
check.
no, I mean, it has 30 hours, so it was out, taken out. It's got some new options. But I mean, it meets all of this one in particular would meet all our normal specs that we would, get with one.
Very good.
Okay, very good, Bill.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Okay, meeting is adjourned at 6:25.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Which I need a signature.